Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Johanna, and for those of you who are new here, welcome. And for those of you who are returning, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to put together a junk journal. And if that is of interest to you, please stay tuned. All right, so Bucky and I were having a team meeting about what we should do for the Saturday upload video. And so we were brainstorming some ideas. And I'm like, dude, what should we do? And he's like, yeah, he didn't say anything. So I'm thinking he just really wants me to come up with my own ideas. And I was looking up there, which right in front of me, there's a shelving unit. And I have this file, and if you've watched my channel for a while, some of these things might look familiar to you because this is where I store all of the scraps that I've been using for the last several months. Now, I've purged a ton of scraps. So that's not all of it, but that's what I've been using for the last few months. And so I thought it might be interesting if we put together a junk journal. So let me put Supervisor Bucky back on his perch. He's actually going to just be right over there. Kathleen and TJ, good morning, guys. Good morning, everyone. I know quite a few of you are a fan of Bucky, so he says hello to all. He's waving. If he had fingers, you could see that. But let me just put him back over here so I don't knock the boss down. I'm pretty sure that's against the law or something. And so what a junk journal is, I think in its original conception, was you would literally take junk. Now this is actually scraps, which would make this more technically a scrap journal than a junk journal. But I think the original conception was you could take old magazines or old newspapers or old books and turn it into a journal using your junk, using your scraps. And so that's what we're going to do today. But we're actually going to take this up a level and do something that I've never done. I've seen enough times. I'm thinking, well, let's try this. We're going to make some signatures, some little booklets with the junk that we have, but we're going to make a cover with this box here. Now, in theory, it sounds like a great idea. In actuality, I'm not even sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this to the side. And we're going to cut this up so I can show you what it is that I'm thinking how this is going to work. Then we'll do the signatures. Now getting to the actual, maybe decorating the cover page or decorating a page in the junk journal just to show you guys how it might work, might actually be the theme for the next couple of Saturday videos because it's really interesting to me. But if I did everything from start to finish, we would all be sitting here for a few hours. And yeah, I don't want to do that. So I think today what we'll do is we'll put together the bones of it. And then if you guys are interested and you want to do something similar, and the next Saturday you'll know that we're going to decorate the cover, then you can be on the lookout for that. So let's get some organization going on. And so I bought this 50 box of colored pencils from Crayola from Target. Now, this is really the only kind of box that I had on hand, but you could use a cereal box, you can use a cracker box, you can use a manila folder, but this I had, and I actually had this in my recycle bin in my room, and I'm like, oh, I can use this. And the reason why I think this is going to work is once I cut this down, it will already be in a book style. Doesn't make sense now, but it will. Now, I want to maintain the integrity of one of these sides. I don't need both of them, I only need one. And so I think what I'm going to do is cut this one. And just so that I can get as straight lines as I can, I will be using my paper cutter. It probably would be smarter to use scissors, but I'm horrible at cutting straight lines. Maybe actually we'll start here. Okay, so I cut the top off. And I won't give you any measurements for this because it really just depends on the size of the outer booklet that you're using. So the size of the box can really determine the size of your booklet. Okay, that is fine because I can actually cut that off. It's just the paper. And then I'm going to cut the bottom off here. So anything that's not on this line, I'm just going to cut right off. And then since I cut this front one, I'm going to just eyeball it like that. Now all of these I'm going to junk. I'm pretty sure a more crafty person would know what to do with this. I do not. So that just goes into the recycle bin. And now we have what essentially is a book cover. Now, depending on what you are using, if you're using like a cereal box or a cracker box or an old file, you're not going to have this built-in hinge. So you're going to need to make that portion. And if you're interested in how to do that, let me know. And I can certainly do one of these from scratch, not using something that's already at a good thickness. But I thought as a jumping off point, especially since I've never actually done something like this before, this would be a good place to start. Okay, so that's all cleaned up. I don't know if I'm going to keep that hole. I think that window is kind of cool, but once this gets covered up in the next video, this might be difficult to cut around. I'm not sure. So we're gonna just leave that as is for now. And so that's going to be our outer booklet. Now, in order for this to be a journal, we're going to need booklets inside. So I will keep this to the side of me handy, but now we're going to get all of that junk, which is this right here. And luckily, if I turn it on the side, most of my pieces will fit within here. So yeah, especially if we decide to cut down this, because it doesn't really matter what size of journal you're working on. So long as you have enough room to do some journaling on, it's fine. Yeah, so I'm going to pull out some papers. I've got an envelope. I've got some white paper that I had done some coloring on, some lined paper. This is a paper bag. Some white paper, this Stalogy thing. These are little booklets that I had made. So that can go in the pile. Put that in the pile. We don't have a theme yet because we can always collage on top of the pages, but we truly want to just build something up. But we don't also want it to get too thick. So let's see how many pages, because I do want to do 2 journals. So let's do some stacks. So that we have a little bit of paper, and some of this might be out of frame, but I'll get it back into frame in just a little bit. But that way we have a little bit of paper for each journal. We can always add 2. And then this is just happy planner paper. It doesn't matter that there's writing on here. But let's do half and half. Okay. And then we can put this in whatever order we want it to. And it doesn't matter what the size pieces are. You do want to have like a max size. So like this might be our max size for the book. So everything else we would cut down. And then of course, once it's all folded up, we'd want that cut down as well. So let me fold these in half. And then it might be easier to show you what the book might look like. All right, so these are our 2 stacks of papers. And so let me just start putting them together in a booklet. I think this will be our cover. And they actually don't have to all be centered. So we can stack that up like that. Like that, and like this. And let's see how that works in here. That's actually not that bad if we cut off some of this up here. So let me pull this up. Yeah, so let's just mark this like that. And you're like, oh my God, this is so imprecise. Well, it's a junk journal. You're using junk, you're using scraps, you're using things that would have been trashed. And so it's, at least the way that I'm doing it, is very imprecise. Now, if you go down the rabbit hole of junk journaling here on YouTube, there are tons of people who are just, you know what, just print our printables, print our kits, and it's a lot easier, and it is, and it all matches, and it's beautiful, but you're not really using junk. You're just purchasing a junk journal that someone else has made. This truly is, well, not necessarily things I was going to throw away, at least not all of it. It certainly is not something you would see normally in something that you would buy. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but I love the aspect of being able to play. And more, that's what really does it for me, is not so much the being productive as being creative. And just like that, we've got one little booklet. And then we would do the same thing here. And for this one, I think I'll use this blue one as the outside cover. There's no rhyme or reason to how I'm stacking this. It doesn't matter what's on the page. It doesn't matter that they don't match up. And you'll see why it doesn't matter when we go into the next phase or the phase after that. Because I think for the next video, what I'll do is we're going to cover the cover together. We're going to cover the cover together. That sounded weird. And then after that, we'll actually play in some of the signatures so that you can see it's not just putting together scraps and calling it a day. It's actually making this into something that is functional. And then if we measure this to this, and we cut down some things. And you don't need a paper cutter. Again, I struggle with straight lines, and so for me, it makes it the easiest thing for me to use. And so we have this, and we have this. What makes it look like this one's bigger is because the cover is bigger, and I suppose I could look for a different cover. But for now, well, no, that is a little annoying. Let me be right back. Okay, so I found this one, which is this paper right here, and so it fits perfectly. And although these two aren't exactly the same size, that's fine, because what actually is important is that they both fit in here. And so they're both covered by this outside cover. So we will need to do something, whether this remains a pocket or I just cover it over remains to be seen. And then there's two ways that these booklets can be put into here. Well, actually, there's multiple ways, but there's two ways that we're going to bind the actual signature. So this little booklet here is called the signature. For this one, we're going to staple it together so that it doesn't move and it stays intact. Now, I do have a long line stapler, and I absolutely could use that, but I'm assuming that you guys don't. And so the way that you can staple this together, you can also sew it, but I'm not prepared for that, so we won't do that. But you can just take either a really thick piece of foam. I've got an eraser here, and then I'm going to take a stapler, and the only requirement for your stapler is that it does need to be able to fold out like that. And I would just staple in there. It will staple it to the eraser, and then the tongs are sticking up, and then all you need to do is just bend them back. Now with the long line one I have, it just works like a regular stapler. But again, you may not have that. So, I don't want you to have to buy materials, especially if you're already just using your junk. Just use the other stuff that you have. And the reason why I'm stapling from the inside out is because I find this easier to do. Plus the way that I'm going to be putting it into the journal there, I think it'd just be a little bit safer. And I'll explain that once we get to that part. And because this isn't the same size, we'll do one more in the middle, just so that everything stays in. Okay, so that one is a proper little book. It's not going anywhere. Nothing is falling out. This one, we are actually not going to do anything with it because the way that we're going to attach it in here is we could sew it in, but we're not. I actually have some string here, and I am going to, now this I believe was part of Happy Mail that Kelly had sent to me, and I still have it, and it was just right there. I could use other kind of twine or something else, but I didn't pull that out. I literally saw this. It makes sense to use it since it is a junk a junk journal. And so all I'm going to do is as many times as it can go, I am going to thread it around this middle part. Now, let me just explain something. I still need to cover this, so I can't make this super permanent, but at least I can give you an idea how this all puts together. Because you might have watched a ton of junk journals, and this just seems like, yeah, that's exactly how you do it. You may never have heard of even the concept. And so I want you to be able to visualize what it is that I'm doing, but in next week's video, we'll cover the outside, and then I will do this for real. And the only difference is I would probably tie these strings together or be a little bit more prepared. Not, something like that. But I'm gonna just put this in something that I can take apart. And that makes it really decorative out there, but that's actually not the point of this. The point of this is now, if we're very clever, although it might be hard since this is literally the same size as the outside, so I may need to cut this down, is we're going to slide this under two of the strings because we've got 4 strings there. So we're going to slide this under there, and yeah, I think I'm going to have to cut this down because it can't be the same height as the string or there's nowhere for it to go. So I'm going to take about a 1/2 inch off. And let's see if we can slide this. I may need to cut that down as well, so I'm just going to keep that on there. And yeah, that's much easier to slide. And so we would put that under, I've got 2 strings right there. And then the other 2 strings, let me cut this one down real quick. We'll put this one. Now, the pros and cons of having it book bound like this is you are stuck with that. So whatever page you flip to next or whatever the next page is, that's what the next page is. Not bounding it together gives you the flexibility of taking the individual sheet out or moving the sheet around. You do want them all under. And so you've got this one that's tied to those strings, and then this one that's tied to these strings, and then when you close it, you have a nice little booklet. Now that I've shown you this style, I'm probably going to staple this together because it's pretty unwieldy as it is right now. And I definitely will need to put this tighter, as well as I think put the strings together so that I'm able to do that. Because I think I might even have to pinch it close here. I don't know. I'm doing everything by memory of videos that I've seen. So we'll have to see. But that's essentially the junk journal. Now in next Saturday's video, we're going to be covering this outside here and making this pretty. Because I mean, this is interesting as it is, but it doesn't have to stay like that. And we will just be using the junk. Now in that video, I'm probably going to bring in some stickers, definitely some glue, various other things that I already have, maybe even some washi, but I'm hoping this is interesting to you guys. I've been wanting to do this for a while now, and this is definitely a simpler way to do it because I already had something that was hinged in a size that can approximate a book. If you're using something that's thicker, then there might actually be a little bit more cutting down. If you guys are interested in one of these that involves making this cover from scratch, let me know, and maybe that'll be the series that we do after putting this one together. I don't know, guys. I'm really happy with this, and I'm going to be looking forward to playing with this in next Saturday's video. I'd love to know what you guys think, and as always, aloha.